And hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Real Talk. It is May 16th, 2025 at 10:03 p.m. on this Friday night. And I don't know if you all will know.
Just from the soundtrack.
Just from the score.
Just from the score.
It is from the movie Cyborg.
It is from the movie Cyborg.
Which is a 1998
martial arts movie starring none other than legendary film actor, martial artist, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
And did I say this is called Cyborg?
Did I say this is called Cyborg?
This is a movie about a martial artist.
Now, this is a movie about a martial artist that hunts a killer in a plague-infested urban dump of the future.
On
now,
IMDb.
that is the synopsis on IMDb. And that is pretty much the synopsis that I'm going to give you now. Because this is a movie that goes back. This wasn't one of my first Jean-Claude Van Damme movies that I've seen.
Now that I think about it, it is actually the.
Now that I think about it, it is actually I think this is the second
that I saw,
possibly third Van Damme movies that I saw.
In the movie theater.
Now the very first being
in the middle.
Double Impact
number 2
in the movie theater,
and
in Copenhagen movie theater in the middle.
They're late, a few minutes,
theater,
probably
number 2.
30 minutes late.
And my friend Josh and I got there late, a few minutes, probably 30 minutes late.
Alex has brought Chad onto
and
one of his.
We went in right at the scene where Chad and Alex has brought Chad onto like one of his deals that he's making, and he's trading drugs for some Mercedes. And that's the scene that Josh and I walked in on. And I used to go over to Josh's house, as a kid, and spend the night and stuff. And some of the movies we would watch would be Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. And this movie that we're talking about tonight, Cyborg, happens to be one of those films.
The original.
Now, this was directed by Albert Pun.
Came out in 1990.
And he also directed the original Captain America. There was a Captain America that came out in 1990.
Now, I'm not sure.
And I have it on VHS. And he directed that original Captain America. Now, I'm not sure 100% if it was released in any kind of theater. I think that it may have been a couple of hundred screens, but it's nothing like the Captain America that we know of today. He directed Blood Match. In Blood Match had, I'm trying to think of the actor. He's in a couple of the Friday the 13th movies.
His name.
Jason Lives. He's in that one.
I've watched a few minutes of Blood Match.
Tom.
And Blood Match was
Can't
one
think
of
of his
these
name.
straight to
I
video.
cannot think. I've watched a few minutes of Blood Match the other night.
Very low budget.
And Blood Match was one of these straight to video
He also directed
releases.
2 and 3,
Very low budget,
which
but was like a
starred,
martial artist movie.
Sasha.
He also directed Kickboxer 2 and 3,
Sasha Mitchell.
which starred
He was known for playing
Sasha
Cody
Mitchell.
on the TV
And
show
if you know Sasha Mitchell,
and
he was known for playing Cody
2 and 4.
on the TV show Step
Van
by
Damme was
Step.
obviously in
And Albert Pun directed Kickboxer
this is a
2
movie
and
that goes way
4.
back.
And Van Damme was obviously in Kickboxer 1.
And this was by
So,
a studio.
this is a movie that goes way back.
Canon was a
1989.
smaller-
And this was by a studio, Canon Films.
They did a lot of,
And Canon was a smaller, they did smaller budgeted type movies. They did a lot of like Chuck Norris movies. They did a lot of B-type movies and things like that. And the Canon Group is kind of what they were known as well. It was like the company. And they had, I'm looking up a few of their things, their movies. And they had a lot of movies that you may or may not have heard of. You have Missing in Action Films. You've got the, let's see here, Masters of the Universe. You've got, I'm trying to name some that a lot of people may have heard of. And so far, not many. Slumber Party 57.
Dr. Jekyll.
I mean, these are movies, honestly, I haven't heard of, and I've heard of
New Year's Evil,
a lot of movies.
80s,
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hype.
Death Wish. Forgot about
New
Death
Year's
Wish
Evil.
movies.
It was in the 80s. You had
So you
Enter
had
the
these kind of
Ninja,
movies
Death Wish. I
that were
forgot
kind
about
of
the
being
Death
put
Wish
out.
movies.
Masters of the Universe and
So you
Spider-Man
had these
were
kind
some
of
of these
movies that
Now,
were kind of being
Canon
put
ended
out.
up going through
And
some
Masters of the
bankruptcy
Universe
at
and
the time.
Spider-Man
So
was some of these movies.
Masters of the
Now,
Universe Part
Canon
2
ended up
and
going through some
Spider-Man
bankruptcy at the
2
time.
never happened.
So
But they
Masters of
needed
the
to
Universe Part
recoup
2
some
and
part of the budget
Spider-Man
that they had
2
already spent
never happened.
on costumes
But
and
they
design and
needed
stuff for
to
these two movies.
recoup some part of the
So
budget
they
that they had already
contacted Albert
spent
Pun
on
because
costumes and
was
designs and
known
stuff of these two
for
movies.
being able to create
So they
something
contacted
quickly,
Albert Pun because
efficiently,
he
and turn
was
it profit.
known
And he did
for
the same
being able to
thing
create
with
something
Cyborg.
quickly,
We'll get into that a
efficiently,
little bit
and
later
turn a
with the budget.
profit. And he did
But
the same thing
this wasn't a movie that was
with
actually
Cyborg.
made because
We'll
of,
get into that a
we
little
have
bit
a
later
good
with the
script,
budget.
we're going
But
to sit out to
so
make
this wasn't a
futuristic
movie that was actually
martial
made
arts
because of we have a great script.
movie.
We're going to
This
sit out
was
to make a
originally
futuristic
set up because
martial
we
arts
need to make some money because
plague
we've already
movie.
spent
This was
money on
originally
these two
set up
projects,
because we
and they're not
need
going
to
to
make
work
some
out.
money
They're not
because
going
we've
to.
already spent
So let's try
this
to
much money
recoup
on these
some
two
of the
projects, and they're not going to work out.
Hence, Cyborg
They're not going to
was
work.
born.
So let's try to recoup
Now,
some of that
Cyborg
budget.
had a young Van Damme
Hence,
playing
Cyborg
Gibson.
was born.
Deborah Richer,
Now,
or
Cyborg had
Richard,
a young Van
as
Damme
Nadine.
playing Gibson.
Vincent Klein
Deborah
as Fender.
Richer or
And
Richard
Vincent Klein
as
is also
Nadine.
in a little movie called
Vincent
Point Break.
Klein
He's one of
as
the
Fender.
surfers
And
gets
Vincent
beat
Klein
up
is
by
also
trying
in
to
a little
harass
movie
Johnny
called
Utah,
Point Break, and he's one of the
right before
surfers
Pappas
that gets
shows up
beat up
asking
that
about his
are
little
trying to
dog.
harass Johnny
Maybe not. Yeah, I think
Utah
he uses the little dog
right
called
before
too.
Pappas
And
shows up and asking
you
about
know,
his
other
little
than that,
dog.
you really don't
Maybe
have
not.
any
Yeah, I think he
huge
uses
name
the little
stars.
dog
Van
thing
Damme
there
wasn't a
too.
huge name. He had
And
Bloodsport.
other than that, you
Major
really don't have any
first,
huge name stars.
you know,
Van Damme
release.
wasn't a huge name. He only had
So
Bloodsport
this was low
as
on
his
stars.
major
So Van
first
Damme is the focal point.
release. So
A few facts
this
about
was
this
low
movie
on
is
stars.
Van Damme
So
accidentally
Van Damme
wounded
is the
Jackson
focal
Rock
point.
Pickney.
A few
His
facts about
eye
this
during
movie
a
is Van
sword
Damme
fight
accidentally
scene near the end of the
wounded
film.
Jackson
It
Rock
permanently blinded
Pickney,
him in one eye.
his
Van
eye,
Damme
during a sword
was taken
fight
to court,
scene near the end of the
and
film. It permanently
Jackson
blinded him
had
in one
actually
eye,
won
and
the
Van
lawsuit.
Damme, he was
Now,
taken to
further
court,
research that I
and
did was Van Damme did
Jackson
pay a sum
Pickney had actually
because he
won
did
the
accidentally
lawsuit.
blind this guy
Now,
in one
further
eye.
research that I
But
did was Van
other
Damme did pay a sum
reports
because he did
and
accidentally
accounts
blind
are
this guy in one
that
eye.
Jackson
But
actually
other
missed the mark
reports
that he was supposed to be
and
at,
accounts
and
are
Van Damme was
that
on his mark, and
Jackson
he accidentally
actually
kicked him
missed
in
the
eye
mark that he was
and
supposed to
blinded
be at,
him. So,
and
you
Van
know, I'm
Damme
not saying
was
it's
on his
anyone's
mark, and
fault,
he
but those
accidentally
are the stories
kicked him
that
in
are
the
out there.
eye, blinded him. So,
Like I was
I'm
mentioning
not saying
earlier,
it's anyone's
this
fault,
was
but
the
those are the
last
stories that are
official
out there.
theatrical release
And like I was mentioning earlier,
Canon Films
this
after
was
going
the
bankrupt
last
in
official
1987.
theatrical
So they went bankrupt in
release
1987.
for Canon Films
Released
after
in
going bankrupt in
1989.
1987. So
Now,
they
the
went bankrupt in
MPAA originally
1987.
gave this
The movie's
movie
released
an
in
X rating because numerous
1989.
cuts,
Now, the
including a lot of blood in the
MPAA
Village
originally
Massacre,
gave this
and one of the
movie an
character
X
death
rating
scenes
because
got
numerous
it an
cuts,
R-rated.
including a lot of
If
blood
you've
in the
seen the
Village
movie, there's a
Massacre,
part during the
and one of
movie
the character death scenes
where
got
Fender
it
and
an
his
R-rated
pirates
film.
are
And if you've seen the
trying to
movie,
get
there's
this
a
boat
part during the movie
from
where
this
Fender and
village.
his
They end up
pirates
torching the
are
village,
trying to get this
killing everyone in the
boat
village,
from
and I'm sure that was the
this
scene that they're
village, and
talking
they end up
about.
torching
It
the
is a pretty
village,
violent scene that happens.
killing everyone in the village,
Budget,
and I'm
including
sure that was the
Jean-Claude Van
scene that they're
Damme's
talking
salary,
about
was
because it is a pretty violent scene as is.
$500,000.
The budget,
The studio
including
had already
Jean-Claude
spent
Van
$2 million
Damme's
on
salary,
production on
was
design, costumes, and miscellaneous prep work
$500,000.
on
The
the
studio
aborted
had already
projects,
spent $2 million on
Masters
production,
of the
on design,
Universe 2,
costumes,
and
and
Cyborg.
miscellaneous prep work on the aborted
So I didn't even
projects,
realize that until
Masters
I just read it
of
in
the
my notes
Universe
that
2, and
I was
Spider-Man.
thinking that the budget was just $500,000.
So I didn't even realize
Yes,
that
the
until I
budget
just
doesn't
read it on my
include Van
notes
Damme's
that
So Van
I was
Damme did
thinking
not
that the
make a lot of
budget
money
was just $500,000, but yes, the budget does include Van Damme's payment. So Van Damme did not make a lot of money.
on this movie, but it was a hit movie. So the budget, like we said, was
On this movie.
$500,000,
But it was a hit movie.
1987 money.
So the budget, like we said, was $500,000, and that's in 1987 money.
But the movie, the size,
so that would probably be a couple of million now, which would still be a low budget for a movie. But the movie, the size and the scale of this movie, it's kind of a road movie, a road trip movie, because they're following Fender on the way from New York to Atlanta.
In America. So
but this movie made $10.1 million in America.
Budgeting.
So it cost half a million.
Made a profit of $9 million.
Made 10.1. Probably had half a million of budgeting. So it made a profit of $9 million, which was a hefty profit for a low-budget movie. Rotten Tomatoes, obviously, it didn't exist back then, but going by what it has on there now, 22% positive, audience score 31, which kind of surprises me. I'm surprised that the audience score is this low for this movie, because it seems to be a well-liked movie, but the IMDb has it right in the middle at 5.0. Now, I'm not saying this movie is a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, because it can't be judged on a scale from great, good, poor, fair, fair, poor, in the same way as, let's say, Punch Drunk Love, or There Will Be Blood, or Good Will Hunting, or the Long Legs. It can't be judged in the same way as that, because it wasn't made in that kind of vein. And that's not what this movie is trying to convey. This is a straight-up action, futuristic action thriller, is what it's listed as.
It's set in the future.
So the plot and the story. So let's get into a little bit of the plot. So it's set in the future. If I can remember, maybe 2040. I don't think we've gotten there yet in real time. But anyway, the movie starts off as these two, a cyborg woman, cybernetic woman, and someone's with her is being chased. They're being chased by these pirates, as they're called, Fender and his pirates, who really just want to wreak havoc on the world. There's a plague going on. The cyborg has information that will help lead to the cure for the plague. Fender wants to own the plague, so he will be considered a god in this horrible,
and the horrendous conditions that the future Earth is in.
And I'm saying horrible because you see the devastation and the horrendous conditions that the future Earth is in.
Named Gibson.
So a slinger, which is kind of like a gun for hire, named Gibson. No, almost every single bad guy in this movie is named after a musical instrument.
Gibson,
because originally this was presented as a rock opera.
But anyway,
so Fender, Gibson, and there's a couple other names like that too throughout.
The Slinger, which was the original title of
this
kind of like a gun for hire, and
the Slinger, which was the original title of the movie,
Cyborg,
it's kind of like a gun for hire, and he happens to see the cyborg, but he mistakes her. He thinks she's someone else. And he's like, no, I don't really want to. I'm not really concerned.
Gibson gets taken down through some rubble.
Sorry, I thought you were someone else, basically, is what he's saying. Gibson gets taken down through some rubble, and then the pirates take the cyborg on the way to Atlanta, because she's trying to get from New York to Atlanta. And this is primitive in a way. There's not a McDonald's there. There's no Starbucks. There's no Walmart. There's nothing like that. Humanity has been devastated with this plague that causes boils and things to go on your skin and your face, and a lot of people that catch it are in misery, complete misery. And it's kind of a doomsday futuristic
Gibson. There's kind of
planet
like another,
Earth at this point.
I guess you could say she's a wanderer, or
Gibson.
Kind of
there's kind of like another. I guess you could say she's a wanderer or kind of a survivor.
She's kind of
stumbles upon Gibson and doesn't really know what to think about him to begin with, and she's kind of eerie, kind of weary of, not eerie, but weary of his intentions, because his intention, as we find out through flashbacks, Gibson's intentions is to Gibson's intentions are to
because previously we
take
learned
out
this through
Fender
many flashbacks
and
throughout
his
the movie,
crew.
is that
Because
Gibson had
previously
given
we
up
learned this through many
being a slinger
flashbacks throughout the
because him,
movie,
the person that he was
is that
dating beforehand,
Gibson had given
kind of
up
fell in love with one
being a
another,
slinger because
and
him and
Fender
the person
ended
that he
up
was
killing
protecting
her
beforehand
and
kind of
the little
fell
boy
in
that
love
she
with one
had.
another. And
And
Fender ended up
oddly
killing
enough,
her
the young girl,
and the little boy that
which is
she
now,
had.
you know, a teenage,
And
in
oddly
this movie,
enough, the young
was also a
girl,
part of that. So Fender had
which is
taken
now,
that
you know, a teenage in
teenage
this
girl,
in this movie,
older teenage now,
was also a part of
with
that. So
him
Fender had
to
taken
join
that
the Pirates.
teenage
So
girl,
this is basically
older
a
teenage now,
road
with
movie
him to
from
join
New
the
York to
Pirates.
Atlanta.
So this is
As
basically a road
Gibson
movie
encounters,
from New York to Atlanta
some thieves,
as
and I mean,
Gibson
not
encounters,
really thieves.
you know, some
They're kind of just seem
thieves,
to be at
and
this one particular thing.
I mean, I shouldn't say
It's kind of
thieves.
like
They're not really thieves. They kind of just
a
seem to be at this
gang
one particular
of.
thing, and it's one of
They
my
don't
favorite
really
scenes.
speak,
It's
so
kind
you
of
don't
like
really know what they
a
want. They just maybe
just
they
a
want
gang
to
of.
have their way with this.
They don't
woman.
really speak, so you
That's
don't
what
really know what
Gibson.
they want. They
Maybe they
just
just want to kill
maybe
them
they
and get
want
their
to
supplies.
have their way with
Who's to
this
say at this
woman
point?
that's with Gibson.
That's a little bit about.
Maybe they just want to kill them and get their
Now,
supplies.
there's a huge
You know, who's to say at
fight
this point?
scene at the very end of the
But that's a
movie.
little bit about, you know, what the
It
movie
is,
is
I would say
about.
it's an epic
Now
fight
there is a
scene.
huge
It takes place in
fight
the
scene
thunder
at the
and
very end of the
lightning and
movie.
rain, and there's a lot of great
It is, I would say, it's an
blues
epic
in
fight
there,
scene. It takes
color
place in
blue.
the thunder and the
And
lightning and the rain, and there's a lot of
it's
great
choreographed very
blues
well.
in there,
The
color
the
blue,
score is good on it, so
and
it comes full circle.
it's
But
choreographed
this is
very
nothing more
well.
than your
The
action
the
thriller.
the score is
There's
good
not a
on it,
lot of
so
dialogue in it.
it comes
It's at
full
a fast
circle.
pace. I
But
think
this
it's
is
like
nothing more
98,
than your action
93,
thriller.
97 minutes or
There's
something
not a
like
lot of
that.
dialogue
So
in
it
it.
goes by
It's
quickly.
at a fast
So when
pace.
you're
I think
going
it's a
in and
quick
it's a Van
90,
Damme movie, so
93,
early on,
97 minutes or
he
something like
hasn't,
that.
he
So it
was
goes by
still
quickly.
kind of rough.
So when you're
Or
going in
they
and it's
thought
a
he was a
Van
little
Damme
bit
movie
rough
so
with the
early
accent.
on,
So they
he
kept his
hasn't,
dialogue
you know,
down
he
to a
was
minimum.
still kind of rough,
And
or they thought he was a little bit rough with
originally
the
this
accent,
movie
so they kept
had
his dialogue down to a
tested
minimum.
terribly.
And
100 out of 100
you know,
people
originally
that
this
watched the
movie
film in the screening
had
did not
tested
like it.
terribly.
All thumbs down.
100 out of 100
Canon was
people
like, this is
that
not
watched
going
the
to make
film
us
in the
any money
screening
back at all.
did
Let's
not
just
like
cut
it.
our losses
All
down
thumbs
and go
down.
with it.
Canon
Van
was like,
Damme
this is not going to make us
foresight,
any money back at
just
all.
as he
Let's
did
just
with
cut our
Bloodsport,
losses now
as
and
he
be done
got
with
into
it.
the editing
But
room
Van
and
Damme had
edited
the
the movie
foresight,
himself.
just as he did with
And then when they
Bloodsport,
showed
as
the
he
edited
got into the
version
editing
to
room
preview
and
audiences,
edited the
they
movie
liked it
himself.
much better.
And then when they showed the edited version to preview
So it seemed
audiences,
like Van
they liked it
Damme
much,
did
much
have a
better.
good knack and a good eye for editing. And
So
how
it
he
seemed
would
like
portray
Van
it
Damme
on
did
camera.
have a good knack and a good
The
eye
characters,
for
you know, like
editing
I said,
and
Fender,
how he looked
he's
great
a
on
fantastic
camera.
bad guy.
The characters,
He's
you know, like I said,
evil,
Fender,
he's mean,
he's a fantastic
he's
bad guy.
ruthless.
He's
You know, he
evil.
has
He's
everything
mean.
going for him throughout
He's
the movie.
ruthless.
He's got, you know, the numbers
He,
of people on his side.
you know, he has everything going for him
He ends up
throughout the
injuring
movie. He's
Gibson
got,
about
you know, the
midway through the
numbers of
movie,
people
and
on his
they do
side.
have a one-on-one fight. Because Van Damme, if
He
you
ends
think
up
Van Damme
injuring
often plays
Gibson
the
about midway through the movie,
So,
and then they do
after
have a
Van Damme has
one-on-one
been
fight.
chased,
Because Van Damme, if you
and,
think, Van
you know,
Damme
had to
often
take
plays
on,
the
you know,
underdog.
7, 8, 9, 10,
So
you know, guys.
after Van Damme
And
has been
women, there's
chased
women in this too
and,
that
you
are
know, had to
fighters.
take on, you know, 7, 8,
You know,
9,
he's
10,
kind of beaten
you know,
down
guys
and hurt, and
and
that's
women.
when
There's
Fender
women in this
first
too
lets him
that are
take him
fighters.
on the beat.
You know, he's kind of
And
beaten down
that
and
just
hurt,
doesn't
and
go
then
well
that's when
for Gibson
Fender
at all.
first lets him take him on the beach.
Gibson ends up being
And
crucified,
that just doesn't go
left there to
well for
die.
Gibson at all.
And in some of these flashbacks, he's
Gibson
thinking
ends up
back
being
about the
crucified,
love that
left there to
Fender
die.
killed.
And in some of these flashbacks, he's
And it
thinking
wasn't
back
just that
about
Fender killed
the
these
love that
people.
Fender killed.
It was the fact
Family.
that he put them
And it
in
wasn't
a well,
just that Fender killed
in
these
like it
these
looked like a well
people.
bucket.
It was the fact that he
And
put them
he
in a
had the little
well,
boy,
and like it
or
looked
maybe
like a
he had the
well
girl.
bucket.
It was Van Damme
And
as
he
Gibson,
had the little
the woman
boy,
that he loved, and the
or
little
maybe
boy
he had the girl.
sitting.
It was Van
in this,
Damme
you know, I guess
as Gibson, the
sitting
woman
in
that
a
he
bucket or
loved, and the
something.
little boy
That's
sitting
irrelevant.
in this,
Only
you know, I guess
held
the
up by Haley, the girl
sitting in a
that
bucket or
was going with
something.
Fender.
That's
Barbed
irrelevant.
wire. She
Only
has to
held
stand
up by
there
Haley, the
and
girl
hold
that
it
ends up
the
going
whole
fender, barbed wire,
unless they're going to get dropped down,
and she has to stand there and hold it to hold them up
Gibson's the only one able to climb out.
unless they're going to get dropped down into the well and die and then be cut with barbed wire.
As he's kicking
Gibson's the only one able to climb out of the
piece
well.
of wood that's holding
So
him
he's
up.
thinking of this as he's kicking at the piece of wood that's holding him up, being crucified.
Kind of been, left behind a little bit.
And then after it falls down, after he kicks it down, the woman that he had left behind, or she'd kind of been, left behind a little bit, Nadine,
so to speak,
is there to kind of help get him off that
to the rainy night
cross, so to speak.
Thunderstorm. You can tell.
And then we cut to the rainy night. We cut to the thunderstorm. You can tell that Gibson has,
ready to fight Fender.
he's mended. He's not as wounded anymore.
So, but as far
he's
as
ready to
characters,
fight
I
Fender
think everyone
again.
does a good job. I've not
some of
seen
his
anyone
pirates.
other than Damme.
So, but as far as characters,
Vincent,
I think everyone does a good job. I've not seen anyone other than Van Damme and Vincent
I don't know if that really says anything
Klein
about
in any other
the
movies.
actors or actresses in this
So,
film. I think they do.
I don't know if that really says anything about the actors or actresses in this film. I think they do a fine job. Pearl, I heard she was like she had done was like a
acting, but
makeup spokesperson at the time. So she's not, it's not like great acting, but it's not horrible. It's fine for this type of movie. It's totally fine. Now, a favorite scene or a least favorite scene?
Like I mentioned earlier, it goes by quickly.
I don't really have a least favorite scene of this movie.
Transitions pretty well.
I think, like I mentioned earlier, it goes by quickly.
One of my favorite
each
fighting
scene
scenes,
transitions
and I guess
pretty
this is one
well
of my favorite scenes
into the next.
Gibson
One of my
and,
favorite fighting scenes,
Nadine,
and I guess this would be one of my favorite scenes, is when Gibson and Nadine, or maybe Nady,
and
I think Nady is her name
like
actually.
a gang.
When Gibson and Nady are traveling, and there's some like a gang
It reminds me of
starting to attack.
Out on the
And the way that's filmed, it's like in the
airport.
it reminds me of
there still is
out on the
a cinder block building.
trying to think
that they would
Airport Road.
practice, like
There still is
fires,
a cinder block building that they would practice
like, kind of
like fires,
like
how
that. It's
to
like the
contain
cinder
fires
block
and things like that.
building structure.
And it looks like some kind of structure like that. It's like this cinder block
and I think
building structure,
fitting, and it's probably just a couple.
but it looks like it would be something from the wasteland.
The scene leading
and I
up
think
to
it's
that,
very
the score
fitting,
really
and it's
well.
probably just a
The
couple
fight
of few minute
really
scene.
cool. Really
But the
good.
scene leading
There
up
is
to
a funny
that,
thing
the
where
score does
Nadine,
really well. The fight scene is really
the gang
cool.
members,
It's really good.
knocks him off
And there is a
the,
funny thing where
I guess the
Nadine
platform.
he hits one of the gang members,
wall,
knocks him
falls
off
down toward
the
camera,
I guess the
screaming,
platform.
But you can easily
He
tell
hits
it's
the
dumb.
cinder block
You can
wall,
easily tell
falls down
it's
toward the
dumb.
camera, screaming,
But that little thing makes
But you
it
can
really
easily
good.
tell it's a dummy. You can easily tell that it's a dummy. But that little thing makes this movie kind of a charming movie.
Least favorite scene.
It's kind of a charming
I don't really have a least favorite scene of
least favorite scene.
I really don't.
I don't really have a least favorite
I mean,
scene
it goes by
of
so
this
quickly.
movie.
The bad
really
guys
don't.
are pretty much interchangeable except for Fender.
I mean, it goes by so
He's a
quickly.
standalone bad guy.
The bad guys are
He does
pretty
have
much
the-
interchangeable except for
pirates.
Fender.
There's
And
probably
he's
8
a good standalone bad guy.
Something else that I should
But he
put
does
in
have
facts
the
is that
the
Vincent Klein's
pirates.
actual,
There's probably 8 to 10 of them. Something
voice
else that I
is
should have put in the facts is that Vincent
his
Klein's
voice is a
actual
little bit higher of a octane
voice is not
and
used
he has
as
more of
Fender.
a Jamaican.
His voice is a little
Not-
bit higher
I
of
should
a
say
octane voice,
Caribbean
and he
type,
has more of a Jamaican
Islander accent.
not. I should
And they
say
said when his
Caribbean
voice first
type
came out, Fender,
Islander
character
accent.
Fender, that the
And they
audience
said
laughed.
when his voice
That's
first came
not what
out
you want
out of Fender,
from this film,
being
the
the
audience
character
laughed
Fender, that the
at
audience laughed. And that's not
main
what you
villain.
want
So
from
therefore
this
they
film,
put in
that
a new
the
voice
audience to
actor
laugh
do the work
at
of Fender's
the
voice.
the main
Van
villain.
Damme took over the
So
editing.
therefore, they put in a new voice actor to do the work of
Score
Fender's
and the
voice,
music, I do
and
think
Van Damme
this
took over
has
the
a
edit,
really
and the
good
rest of his history.
score. I really do.
Score
There's a
and the
little bit
music.
of a
I do
flashback.
think this has a really good score. I really do. Here's a little bit of the flashback. And that's some of the soundtrack that you hear as he's flashbacking to him and the girl he was with before. I mean, you've got Music at the Mall. I'm not sure exactly what this one is. I could tell you by. Okay. This is like from a scene where they go to... It seems to be a place where you can get supplies, maybe a store, but it's really a rundown looking place. It's you know, they've got maybe food there, maybe like a market type thing. Let's see what else we have. False Victory. So you can kind of hear a lot of the score and how it's very synth, very 80s. But it fits perfectly. And I'm not 100% sure who did the score to this movie, but they do a fantastic job. I mean, the movie and score fit perfectly, and it's a really good score. Typically, in my opinion, the horror movies or thrillers have really great scores. Action movies aren't really, in my opinion, for the most part, they don't have the mood of an action film typically that would warrant a very moody type score. But this score, I guess where there's not a lot of dialogue, this score elevates the movie even further, and I really do like the score. I think it's a very, very good job. Originality. I've been divided a little bit about this. The movie is not original in the way it's not groundbreaking in any particular way. It's not any kind of fight scenes that you haven't seen before. You've seen villains, I'm sure, very similar to Fender. And the mission at hand, getting from New York to Atlanta, isn't anything outstanding either, because there's a cure for the plague. But the way, once you learn everything that went into making this, I mean, some of the costumes that they wear, Fender's costume that he wears throughout the movie was made for Masters of the Universe 2. Skeletor's some of his armor in that movie. So, and there's several of Fender's pirates that you could look and see. Oh, I can see that they're wearing Masters of the Universe kind of attire. Now, if you didn't know this information, you might not put those two together. I don't know. Now, I did always think it, but I didn't really know that until the internet came along and all that kind of stuff. So, originality, it's not original in any of the pieces on its own, but in the way they all fit together, I think it's a pretty original, futuristic sci-fi thriller. I really do. Poster, I purchased this VHS in Big Kmart, and I remember purchasing Cyborg, and I purchased Kickboxer as well. And Van Damme on this poster, it's Van Damme, but it doesn't look like Van Damme does exactly in this movie. So I always thought something was off a little bit about him in the poster. But behind it, you've got you see the desolate, it looks like it's Atlanta maybe in the background. And you've got Fender and probably a group of 2, 4, 6, 7 pirates walking. So I think it's a very memorable poster. I posted it up on the Facebook page, and WLSD has it on their page as well. So, yeah, it's a good poster. It's a good poster. Would I recommend this movie? Yes or no? I would definitely recommend Cyborg. Now, what would be Van Damme's best movie? Now, a lot of people say Bloodsport. I'm actually not one of those people. I do like Bloodsport. I do think it's a very entertaining movie. I think it's a great tournament fighting movie. But I also like Cyborg, Kickboxer, Lionheart. When I speak of Van Damme movies mainly, I'm speaking of from 1988 until 1998. Because Van Damme had about a 10-year run where he was, near the top. And the last couple of years, Maximum Risk, Double Team, Knockoff, Universal Soldier, The Return, which was in 99, those movies all flopped. And I saw them all. I mean, out of Van Damme's biggest movies, I've seen all of them, but I saw, Double Impact in theater, Universal Soldier, Hard Target, Time Cop, Street Fighter, The Quest, Maximum Risk, Double Team, and some of the others that I didn't see, Knockoff or Sudden Death. We didn't get Sudden Death around here. And Knockoff was a Columbia movie, and we didn't get Columbia movies in 1998. So, but I would put this in the top 5. I really would. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's a very interesting movie. I think Van Damme does a good job. You care about his mission. I bet he doesn't speak 100 words in this movie. But you care about the mission, and the way it's executed is pretty unique, especially if you think in 1987, 1988, $500,000. They made this movie on $500,000. I mean, they do a great job. They do a great job. So I would definitely recommend it. It's not Van Damme's best. I would say, Van Damme's best movie, I don't know. I like Hard Target. I wish he had a different haircut. I'm not fond of the mullet on him in this movie. Universal Soldier and Double Impact were standouts as well. But, I do have a fondness of Lionheart. I have a fondness of Kickboxer. So it just depends on what kind of mood you catch me in, whether or not which Van Damme movie I'm going to choose. Nowhere to Run. That's a good one as well. It's a little more of the dramatic than the just straight out action. So we may do a show just on Van Damme, just on those 10 years of Van Damme. 10 years of Van Damme. That might be something that we can try in the future. But thank you for tuning in to Real Talk on 92.5 WLSD The Vault. And I'm not sure exactly what we're going to be diving into next week, but I'm sure it'll be interesting, and I'm sure it will be fun. You all have a good night. Oh yeah, don't forget to go to all the social media pages. That's the Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, The Other People Show. Now you all have a good night.